Picture the European Union for a second. It's this massive, highly integrated alliance of 27 independent countries, right? We're talking about a region where borders barely even exist anymore. You can literally drive from one country to another without so much as a passport check. And naturally, a core part of all this unity is that everyone uses one shared currency, the euro. Well, actually, scratch that. Almost everyone. Today in this explainer, we're zeroing in on the holdouts, the specific countries that look at the euro and just say, no thanks.
Okay, let's dive into this. Why on earth would any nation voluntarily turn down the massive, undeniable convenience of the euro? I mean, think about it. If all your neighbors and trading partners are using the exact same money, wouldn't it just make life endlessly easier to join the club? To really wrap our heads around this rejection, we first need to look at what these countries are actually walking away from.
You see, the original promise of the euro was just, well, it was utopian. It was incredibly appealing. Imagine this completely frictionless system. One giant trading zone. One single currency. No more dealing with those frustrating currency exchanges at the border. And absolutely no more exchange fees quietly eating into your profits. Just easy, streamlined international trade. On paper, it's the perfect setup. It creates this expectation of a flawless, highly efficient economic engine, where joining is literally an absolute no-brainer for any growing economy.
But here's where we hit a bit of a record scratch, because the grim reality of that flawless system is sitting right here. Despite that incredibly appealing promise, there are 6 specific countries, Sweden, Denmark, Poland, Czechia, Hungary, and Romania, that obstinately, stubbornly still use their own money. They are full-fledged members of the EU. They are deeply integrated into the whole European project, yet they absolutely refuse to let go of their national currencies. So why? Well, it really all comes down to what happens when things go wrong.
That beautiful, flawless system we were just talking about? Yeah, it hits a massive brick wall. This second, a real economic crisis strikes. Imagine a scenario where a country's economy is suddenly in absolute freefall. To save itself, the government urgently needs to take drastic, immediate financial actions, right? They might need to scream, cut the interest rates right now, print more money, or they might even need to deliberately devalue and crash their own currency to immediately boost exports and save local jobs. Now, if you have your own money, your central bank just does it. Boom, done. But if you rely on the euro,
well, you kind of get this response instead. Actually, we need to ask Brussels first. Yeah. Oh, look at that. The workday's over. See you guys after the long weekend. Anyone want some wine? I mean, it sounds like a joke, but when you need to move at lightning speed to save your national economy, you are instead sitting there waiting on centralized bureaucrats at the European Central Bank in Brussels to make a decision. And the kicker? They have to make a decision that works for all the other countries in the Eurozone too, not just yours.
So the crucial point comes down to this heavy phrase, monetary policy. The main thing a country sacrifices when it switches to the euro is absolute control over its own currency supply and its baseline interest rates. In an isolated system, a central bank can surgically adjust these little levers to cool down runaway inflation or, jumpstart a stagnant local economy. But because the euro is shared by so many, those life-or-death financial decisions are no longer tailored to one country's specific economic climate. They're all aggregated, lumped together, and decided for the entire eurozone. You are essentially handing over your national financial steering wheel to a centralized authority. And for these 6 holdouts, relinquishing that sovereign control is simply a price way too high to pay.
And this brilliantly illustrates how the European Union actually handles this rebellion. Because, surprise, surprise, the rules aren't the same for everyone. Denmark, for instance, saw this exact monetary friction coming from a mile away. They negotiated a special deal early on, so they are officially, legally allowed to stay out of the Eurozone. They have a formal opt-out explicitly written right into the EU agreements. Good for them, right? But the others, Sweden, Poland, Czechia, Hungary, and Romania, they are technically and formally required to eventually adopt the euro as a strict condition of their EU membership. They do not have a legal exemption.
So, you're probably wondering, if those 5 countries are legally required to join, how exactly are they getting away with not using the euro? Well, welcome to the informal rebellion. These 5 holdout nations heavily, and I mean heavily, exploit informal delays. They basically look at Brussels and say, yes, of course, absolutely, we will adopt the euro, eventually. Because there's no strict, immediate deadline ruthlessly enforced by the EU, these countries can just engage in infinite delay tactics. They're perpetually kicking the can down the road to avoid ever actually fulfilling that formal requirement.
Which brings us to our final lingering thought for today. Will these nations adopt the euro tomorrow? Or, I don't know, maybe next week? Or how about never?
Honestly, as long as keeping absolute control over their own national monetary policy outweighs the seamless convenience of a shared currency, these nations are probably going to keep stalling. It's this fascinating, ongoing tug-of-war between European unity and national financial independence. Thank you so much for joining me as we unpacked this complex geopolitical dynamic. Keep asking those great questions, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.